Hello folks, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So welcome to another One Piece review. This time we're covering manga chapter 1140. I don't think there's anybody doubting that Scopper was going to be a boss, considering what we saw from Rayleigh, but Oda went above and beyond to prove that. Even to the point that Luffy had to go into Gear 5th, which in the last review I was completely against. Not because I didn't want to see it, only because the more you do something, the less special it becomes. Oda did it anyway, so what does it matter what I think? But I will say what we got was epic. I'm not going to deny that. Before I get into the chapter, we did get a visual released following this chapter, which could have hinting where Elbaf is going as far as the direction and what possibly could go down. Maybe towards the finale or even mid, because again, we're still in the early stages of Elbaf, so I'll dive into that by the end because that's a big talking point. But let's start off with the cover page, and I have to say, Oda has really switched it around as far as the intrigue, as the Yamato cover story, because it went from not really caring who was the culprit, but here now things are getting interesting because I guess we found out who the two rebels that got captured by Who's Who were. We found out on this cover page, Ulti has returned, but page 1 was mentioned, don't lay a finger on Peyton, so it's cool to see Ulti, despite the fact she's pinned to a dartboard, with katanas literally, and Ulti's heart is positioned right by the bullseye, so that's really fucked up. So you see some of these katanas actually cause some damage to Ulti, and you got some of these katanas actually doing some damage on Ulti, because you see one blade partially slicing the leg as you see blood coming from it. There's one blade that looks like it barely just missed the neck. There's one katana that's pierced right into a hip region, so that's really messed up. It looks like she's also knocked out. Though I will say the expression that Ulti has, even though it looks like she's knocked out because of the eyes, there's no pupils there. It does remind me of what we got with Luffy after he got knocked out by Kaido the first time, and he had that same expression. Obviously we can't see a mouth because obviously it's covered, but it's the same expression, and obviously the caption, "Don't lay a finger on my Peyton or I'll beat the heart of you." How does that remind you of Luffy in any way? So plus she's strapped to the dartboard with chains, so I'm pretty sure they're made out of sea stone. Ulti has got that defiant attitude, so I can absolutely see him doing something different. So she has that defiant look, the same as Luffy did. Oh, I don't know what whose problem is or why he's going around doing this. But despite that, despite how messed up this is, I can absolutely see this, the way I see it playing itself out now. It's a sense of irony here because we know Yamato and Tama are inside. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yamato ends up taking out Who's Who or actually doing something before Ulti's heart gets pierced, because obviously that's the aim of the game here. So Yamato's going to come in. Yamato's going to help out Ulti by default, which is interesting because when Yamato was first revealed, who was it that Yamato actually struck with Thunder Bagua to help out Luffy? It was Ulti. And then Yamato went on to clash with Ulti for a bit during 1 Hour 3. So yeah, so there's a sense of irony there. This is leading to Yamato actually saving Ulti this time around instead of actually taking out Ulti. I don't know what happens after that. I don't know what happens to page 1, because if this is going the way I think it is, with Yamato actually saving Ulti and there actually being a compromise between the two, sign me up. I'm sure a lot of Yamato and Ulti fans will have no problem with coming up with fanfics if that's the case, if not already. So then we get into the chapter itself, and oh boy, there's a couple of factors to take into consideration here going into this. Luffy starts off by asking, why would we fight you over a key? Just give it here. Scopper kind of throws it in Luffy's face, oh, you don't think you can take it from me? So Scopper is trolling Luffy hardcore throughout this entire fight, to the point you see Nami in the background actually trying to calm Luffy down, because she's like, Luffy, stop. But Luffy's not listening. He charges in, tries to reach for the key. Doesn't work because Scopper is dodging like a boss. But then there's one point when Scopper comes in. He coats the giant key. By the way, it's easy to overlook how huge that key is because he coats it in an arm and haki, and then actually hits Luffy as as he's swinging it at him, to the point where Nami again gets concerned. But Luffy bounces back and literally recovers. So again, Luffy tries attacking and tries to reach for the key, but Scopper again is dodging like a boss. And I love how they have exchanging dialogue during this entire exchange. So Scopper notices his straw hat and finally makes a comment about it. And Luffy actually responds, "Oh, it's my treasure that I'm holding onto it for Shanks." And then Scopper responds, "Oh, you're just holding onto it? You didn't just give it to you? What a cheapskate." That triggered Luffy even further, to the point where it's like, "No, you got it wrong. Don't call him that." Scopper at that point just relinquished the key because he threw it right at Luffy's mouth. So even after this, Scopper gets serious because he brings out the axe. He's about to use Grim Throng on Luffy. And then this is where Zoro has to coach Luffy, wait, dodge, because this is no joke. And it kind of reminds me of when Zoro was about to unleash Emna on Kaido during Wano, but Big Mom had to warn Kaido to dodge it because Big Mom was able to sense Emna and sense the danger, which Kaido couldn't, or at least he didn't notice. Similar here, because had Luffy been able to use Futures, he would have seen this shit coming. So Luffy ends up dodging, but I like the fact that Zoro was able to block it as well, one of the attacks. But if you look at the damage outside it causes, one, it slices one of the clouds in half, and a portion of that giant Orist castle, so that's a feat outside, so that was impressive. Nami and Rodo completely freak out because then this is where Luffy and Zoro gets serious. Luffy's in gear 5th, and then Scopper, after Zoro and Luffy, is like, "Oh, let's go for it, Zoro," and Zoro's like, "Yeah, you betcha." Obviously, that is a throwback to Roger and Rayleigh. It's exactly the same positions. So they go charging in, and that's where he says, "I give up. I give up." Plus, like I said, he's already relinquished the key. But the whole point of this was to hype up the threat and prevent Luffy from doing a stupid move by freeing Loki. So that's how that ends, with Zoro and Luffy, with Scopper giving it up. "Oh, don't get so worked up. I was just fooling around," and this really set off Luffy. And again, he literally threw the key right at Luffy. So it's important to note, though, Oda literally had Luffy completely attack haphazardly, knowing that he could have used Future Sight had he approached this fight differently. But he was so focused on getting this key, deliberately nerfed Luffy in this, because had this been Luffy using Future Sight, I don't know. My only problem was with Gear 5 being used is the more you do something, the less special it is. And the thing is, Gear 5, it didn't even play a factor. It was just there for aesthetics. I do like the fact that, though, it looks like the horns from the helmet merged with Luffy's form. I thought that was pretty cool. Then this comes interesting because Scopper's like, "If Elbaf is still safe, by the time you decide to leave, come find me." So Oda just spoiled the potential ending of this arc. Because even if Luffy responded the way he did, they're trying to brush it off, but Oda wouldn't have had that comment made by Scopper if it wasn't going to happen. So this triggers a flashback of Scopper telling Shanks, "Why would I trust him that easily?" Obviously referring to Luffy. Shanks is like, "Do whatever you want." So obviously he come to trust Luffy, considering what this was about. But we move on from that to, in my opinion, the best part of the entire chapter, because this is really amping up the tension as far as this arc is concerned. So then we get into the chapter itself, and oh boy, there's a couple of factors to take into consideration here going into this. Luffy starts off by asking, why would we fight you over a key? Just give it here. Scopper kind of throws it in Luffy's face, "Oh, you don't think you can take it from me?" So Scopper is trolling Luffy hardcore throughout this entire fight, to the point you see Nami in the background actually trying to calm Luffy down, because she's like, "Luffy, stop." But Luffy's not listening. He charges in, tries to reach for the key. Doesn't work because Scopper is dodging like a boss. But then there's one point when Scopper comes in. He coats the giant key. By the way, it's easy to overlook how huge that key is, because he coats it in an Almond Haki and then actually hits Luffy as he's swinging it at him, to the point where Nami again gets concerned. But Luffy bounces back and literally recovers. So again, Luffy tries attacking and tries to reach for the key, But Scopper again is dodging like a boss. And I love how they have exchanging dialogue during this entire exchange. So Scopper notices his straw hat and finally makes a comment about it. And Luffy actually responds, "Oh, it's my treasure that I'm holding onto it for Shanks." And then Scopper responds, "Oh, you're just holding onto it? You didn't just give it to you? What a cheapskate." That triggered Luffy even further, to the point where it's like, "No, you got it wrong. Don't call him that." Scopper at that point just relinquished the key because he threw it right at Luffy's mouth. So even after this, Scopper gets serious because he brings out the axis, about to use Grimthrong on Luffy. And then this is where Zoro has to coach Luffy, wait, dodge, because this is no joke. And it kind of reminds me of when Zoro was about to unleash Emna on Kaido during Wano, but Big Mom had to warn Kaido to dodge it because Big Mom was able to sense Emna and sense the danger, which Kaido couldn't, or at least he didn't notice. It's similar here, because had Luffy been able to use Futures, he would have seen this shit coming. But Luffy ends up dodging, but I like the fact that Zoro was able to block it as well, one of the attacks. But if you look at the damage outside it causes, one, it slices one of the clouds in half, and a portion of that giant Orist castle, so that's a feat outside, so that was impressive. Nami and Rodo completely freak out because then this is where Luffy and Zoro gets serious. Luffy's in gear 5th, and then Scopper, after Zoro and Luffy, is like, "Oh, let's go for it, Zoro," and Zoro's like, "Yeah, you betcha." Obviously, that is a throwback to Roger and Rayleigh. It's exactly the same positions. So they go charging in, and that's where he says, I give up. Plus, like I said, he's already relinquished the key. But the whole point of this was to hype up the threat and prevent Luffy from doing a stupid move by freeing Loki. So that's how that ends, with Zoro and Luffy, with Scopper giving it up. "Oh, don't get so worked up. I was just fooling around." And this really set off Luffy. We see the children of Elbaf. They spot a giant bird, and obviously this bird is made from Gunko and her bandages, because we see them coming in hot to the realm of the sun, literally. They notice there's a school there, so that's where she performs the ritual summoning, because we see the magic circle. It's supposed to be one Holy Night, but we ended up getting 2. We see and it's interesting that Oda highlights the sparks again, much similar to what he did in Egghead Island. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to go unnoticed, considering a lot of people sense this. The last time this happened, 2 more Holy Nights get revealed. The House Shepherd, St. Summers. And we got the House Lemuzov, St. Quillingham. But obviously, wacky designs, especially Quillingham, who has it looks like he was in his hybrid form or zone form, because obviously his neck, is Oda back at it again with those weird ass zone type forms designs, because his neck is like a giraffe, but he's got a sphere around his head, much like a celestial dragon, and then he has a gas mask outside it, so that's wacky as all hell. But he is a Holy Knight, so again, in One Piece, don't judge a book by its cover. So they find out they get summoned to Elbaf. St. Summers, he gets revealed. He's completely in his underwear, which I actually like this touch by Oda, because we get some more characterization, even though it's a tidbit of detail from Gunko. But I like the fact that he's doing this. While this scene is supposed to be epic, she's blushing, obviously, because Summers is in his underwear, but she's also turning away. So I thought that was really funny. But Shamrock is like, "I only wanted one person. Why are there 2 here?" Which is a very good question. But then St. Summers is like, "Oh, I suppose the situation is kind of dicey in Marajoa. Everything's spiraling out of control. You need to hurry back there, Shamrock." So I hope Oda's not teasing this guy, literally dipping after he just got here, after talking all that mad shit. There's a slight tease of Shamrock going back to Marajoa, but I don't think that's going to be the case, because what would be the point of hyping this guy up at Jump Festa if he was? So we got 4 of the Holy Knights on Elbaf. It was meant to be 3, but so they get briefed on the mission, and obviously it's to kidnap these children and take them hostage to Marajoa, because obviously they couldn't get their way with Loki. So Quillingham says, "And without this mark, we can't bypass through the abyss, the ritual summoning, I guess, back to Marijoa. So they're stuck there. So they actually mentioned maybe we should take them by ship. And Shamrock decides, let's make a game out of this, much similar to what we got with the hunting game, like father like son, like his dear old daddy did back in the day with the hunting game during the Kuma Black story, the God Valiant that led to the God Valiant incident. Now we're going to get it revisited in Elbaf through Shamrock, only this time, instead of killing as many people, I'm guessing how many of the Holy Knights can rack up capturing the children of Elbaf. Obviously, Oda's not wasting any time with the tension. Like, I would assume that how many children can they capture? Unless Oda's really on something dark and they're actually going to go out the way to kill him. So that's how the chapter ends. Like I said, like the whole Scopper and Luffy discourse, it is what it is. Like I said, I've already made my thoughts very clear. But I will say this part of the chapter actually hypes me up. The pacing that Oda's going with is crazy. Which leads me to my first point, because there was a comment made by words going around about a season 3 of the live action One Piece live action on Netflix. We got comments from Vincent Regan, the actor who plays Garp in the live action. I believe he hinted at suggesting that season 3 is likely to happen, but nothing's really been publicly stated by Netflix, and why would they? Because season 2 has yet to air, so they're not going to overshadow that with the news of season 3. This is more about getting more casual eyes on the franchise than it is anything else. They're not going to say anything until season 2 is a wrap on Netflix, so yeah. But even if that's the case, like, who's shocked by this? My point, though, is this could have something to do with the pacing, the fast pacing in the early stages of Elbaf, because we just got here, and like I said before, it feels like we're approaching the climax. It feels like we're approaching the finale. And speaking of the finale, that brings me up to my final point, and the visual art that got, which potentially hints at a certain group making their way to Elbaf, potentially, with the visual of the Revolutionary Army at full strength. You got Dragon there, you got Sabo, you got the Revolutionary Army commanders, you got Lindbergh, Karasu, Bello Betty, and you also got Morley there, you got Ibn Koff, you got Sabo, and you got Koala. So the main players of the Revolutionary Army, I'm pretty sure that are going to be at full force. But with this visual revealed, this is likely hinting at Dragon finally making his move and possibly make his way to Elbaf. There's only 2 scenarios that can come from this if this is the case. If Oda's making a major play with the Revolutionaries, there's no better time than now, because literally we went through this. I don't think it was really confirmed by Oda, but you're not going to convince me that at one point in time there wasn't a plan to have Dragon show up on Egghead Island. You're not going to convince me of that, because there were certain scenes that played itself out that made it seem like something else was going to happen, but Oda had a change of plan. Case in point, I always go back to this because the scene involving Stella, Vegapunk, and Nami about the log pose and the direction that was going in. They would have headed in the direction of Elbaf, but instead, Oda decides to bring Elbaf to Egghead Island in the form of Dorian Bragi. So, you're not going to convince me there wasn't a change of plan, because why would that scene involving Nami and Stella happen? Like, there was no point of that unless you had a change of plan, which I believe they did. So, and considering all like the links that Dragon had to not only Vegapunk, but also with Kuma, and especially with the aftermath of the horror incident, we saw it. Like, we saw Vegapunk meet a young Dragon, and we saw how he acted and how he reacted to the situation. Like, there wasn't a moment in time where Oda was possibly going to have Dragon show up, but decided to have a change of plans. Now, I said one of the reasons could be because we're already getting an emotional reunion involving Bonnie and Kuma, that Oda decided to put that on hold. But we just got through another emotional reunion involving Sol and Robin, and I did think, despite how masterfully it was handled by Oda, I did think it was a little bit too soon. Like, I think Oda was like trying to get it over with. So maybe because if this is the case, and there's a potential of, I don't know why and how they would get there, but I mean, I don't rule anything out at this point. It's the final saga. I've said that over and over. But a lot of these key components are on Elbaf right now. Vegapunk, Kuma, and Robin. They're all on Elbaf right now. So we know how Dragon feels in comparison to his son. Like, he's more concerned about Robin than he is Luffy. So I can absolutely see them showing up, especially if the Holy Knight's there. The other thing that could potentially happen is because of Luffy actually ironing on the activities of the Revolutionary Army, and Teach seems more focused on that than he is dealing with Shanks or any other Yonko right now. But I've already made my thoughts about what's going to happen involving Teach. Like, he's going to come in, he's going to find out about the ancient weapons, Shirahoshi, and he's going to come to Fisherman Island looking for that ancient weapon, possibly Wano too, depending how things go. Because Carabo was at both Fisherman Island and heard about both ancient weapons, so he's going to share that with Teach. He's going to make a play for the ancient weapons. It would make perfect sense. 2 out of the 3. We know Emu has the 3rd, and I'm only saying that because Oda hyped up a certain person, a certain man, a certain guy making waves outside of Elbaf. Finally making waves. Like, Oda's Teacher's already, I've already said this, Teacher's already made waves, so what would be the point of hyping him up? Like, we know he's gonna, like, lead into the final arc, but are we potentially looking at the Revolutionaries versus the Blackbeard Pirates? Maybe. Now, we've been through this song and dance before as far as Dragon's concerned. So, obviously, the memes are going to begin as far as Dragon potentially showing up. Oh, wait, we'll have to wait another year. Or we're going to have to wait another arc. So I get it. But there is, like I said before, I think there was a reason why Oda decided to change his mind in Dragon coming to Agate Island. Instead, leaving that potentially afterwards. So, is Elbaf the destination and finally the time? So, why not Elbaf? Like, a lot of the ingredients that we saw on Agate Island are on Elbaf. Like, Stella's going to make its return through technology. We saw that. That's gonna have an effect on, like, remodeling Kuma to get fixed up. So Kuma's there. Robin's also there. Because if that's the case, then I think that pretty much guarantees that another Yonko and their crew are coming into Elbaf. Because we're already starting off strong with the Holy Knights and this new contest here. Only this time it's on Elbaf. So, plus, you're going to have a reunion involving Luffy and Dragon, so why not combine that all in one? If that's the case, and we're getting the Revolutionaries making a play, sign me up, because it's about time. Regardless if it's on Elbaf or not. With this move with the Holy Knights now, this pretty much guarantees that a couple of Straw Hats are guaranteed to have a fight. So we're going to get some Holy Knights in action, see what they can do. I think the one Straw Hat that's guaranteed outside of Luffy and Zoro is Robin. That's a guarantee with this, because they're going to show up at the library. We could kick Robin versus any member of these Holy Knights, and God forbid if it was Shamrock, but we could see Robin potentially get a 1v1. I would be okay if there was actually a team up involving Robin and Sol against one of these Holy Knights. The setting could be more appropriate considering they're finally fighting together, so I could absolutely see Oda making that happen after the reunion. What comes next? Researching the books and actually having them team up. We could get Robin versus Gunko, but we could also get, because the Holy Knights are targeting children, I can absolutely see Nami being another potential candidate. I think after this chapter, pretty much like I said, Robin's a lock. Usopp has to play a factor at some point, especially on Elbaf. So I would be okay with him and Sanji teaming up against one of these guys. Maybe. There's a lot of different directions that Oda can go with this. Like I said, if Oda's idea is to bring in the Revolutionaries now, that could actually play itself out, and maybe we can see a Dragon Luffy team up down the line. If there's a Rob Poneglyph on Elbaf, Yonko crew or 2 would show up. So plus Sabo is coming with them, so you don't think so that'd be cool as well. Seeing Sabo and Luffy reunite again. I wouldn't rule anything out as far as them showing up on Elbaf, because we saw this with Kuma. He was able to find his way from Merijoa to Agate Island. Maybe that's the reason why Oda speedrun through the reunion of Robin and Sol, because there's another reunion coming in. Maybe. Like, again, I don't want to jump the gun because we've been down this rabbit hole so many times, but I'm like, the series is not getting any younger, so at some point Oda's going to have to reveal his hand in the form of Dragon. So hopefully that's sooner rather than later. The mindset that Luffy was in, because of that, altered his judgment throughout this entire fight involving Scopper. So he wasn't thinking straight from the get-go because of this. Like, and the takeaway I have is, wow, Luffy really wants to free Loki, worse than I thought. But maybe it's because it has something to do with Shanks, or like I said, he knows something that hasn't been revealed yet, and it's going to blow Luffy's mind. And Zoro and Nami both called this out a couple of chapters ago. Luffy's been acting weird ever since meeting up with Loki, so I would not throw out to the side that possibly it's Zoro versus Loki, not Luffy. I don't see Luffy going up against Loki in Gear 5th. That's way too soon. Somehow, some way, they're going to have to earn the trust of Luffy, but Zoro is the one that has trust issues, not Luffy. Luffy doesn't give a shit. Which I said this in my last review, I would not mind, and it would prevent Oda from writing himself into a corner, considering this is only going to lead another Gear 5th appearance from Luffy. Like I said, the more you do something, the less special it is. That was my only gripe with this. I thought it was a great chapter, and it sets up so much tension in the air with this another hunting game involved with the Holy Knights. That's going to do it for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys know what to do, if you enjoyed this review, hit that thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support. Subscribe to more One Piece, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.